Hi, so a slightly different talk. My name is Max Brodheim. I am not an astronomer or an instrument builder, but I am a lowly software engineer at Keck in the scientific software group, and I work mostly on data reduction pipelines. And I'm going to be talking about data reduction pipelines at Keck now, where we see them going in the future, and why this is really important to everybody in this room. So at the highest level, data reduction pipelines at Keck, we want to have a DRP for every instrument, at least one. There are many out there now. Some of our instruments sort of depend on tribal knowledge that you or your institution has. We want to level the playing field a little bit. This is driven by the Data Services Initiative, which aims to improve data services at all phases of observing, from planning all the way through publishing your paper. And of course, this includes data reduction. And some really high-level goals we have are we want reduced data for every instrument in the Keck Observatory archive. At some point, we're working towards that goal. And we want quick look data available for you guys when you're at the telescope, so you can determine whether or not your data is scientifically valid before you leave. So hopefully there's time for you to do something about it. And right now we're only focused on spectroscopy. Imaging may come later, but we're going to tackle the big one first. And the overall philosophy here is that if we have good data reduction pipelines, it's better for our observers, it's better for users of the Keck Observatory archive, which means it's better for Keck. Where do these DRPs come from? We kind of have two classes. I'm going to fudge some numbers and pretend that NIRES showed up before KCWI because it's convenient for me. KCWI and KPF and newer are all developed by the instrument teams. So in the past, whether or not an instrument showed up at Keck with a data reduction pipeline was mostly down to how generous the PI was. Now it's a requirement that the DRP is basically treated like an instrument subsystem. So when the instrument shows up at the observatory, there will be a data reduction pipeline that covers at least most science cases for our observers. Anything NIRES and back is developed by the Pipet team. So in case you didn't make it to the breakout session yesterday, Pipet, it's a Python-based general purpose data processing package for astronomical spectroscopy. It's not just Keck, but we've been spending a lot of time with the team developing pipelines for Keck instrumentation. This is a chart. We can focus mostly on the left columns under DRP status. That shows where we are in our goals of getting a pipeline out for every instrument. Anything in green, we're running automatically at the observatory now and archiving that data. Anything in blue is something we're actively testing. And anything in yellow is something that we're working on. The dates for the stuff in yellow, a lot of it comes down to the process of whenever somebody figures out how to fix that bug for high-res. So don't treat that date too closely. Hopefully it's coming soon. And then in support, you can see whether or not this is something that Keck is developing with an instrument team or whether or not it's supported by Pipet. So you can see we're pretty close to getting to our goal of having something for every spectrograph. Anybody who's worked with software knows that software is not a thing that you finish and then it's done. It is a living, breathing creature that needs effort put into it to keep it alive. I can tell you Keck cannot maintain all these DRPs on our own. We are a resource-constrained organization. I am only one person. I cannot maintain all of that on my own, even with the help of the wonderful Pipet team. And we definitely can't implement new features to support every novel science case. So part of the fun of working at Keck is that you guys come up with really interesting, creative, cool ways to use our instruments in unexpected ways. And we do not have the resources to write the software to help you process that data for every science case. What we can do is provide guidance to DRP developers on what Keck considers a complete data reduction pipeline, both for our future instruments as well as people who want to contribute to our existing DRP suite. We can deploy DRPs to nightly operations at the observatory, so that gets us to our goal of having reduced data in the archive for all of our instruments. And a key piece is we can organize community-driven development of open source pipelines. So what is community-driven development? It means you guys do something, and that truly means anybody in this room or anybody else from undergrad all the way through faculty. If there are tools that you use to reduce your data, I beg of you, please share them. It will be helpful in some capacity. These contributions can take a lot of different forms. If you have written a tutorial for your lab group on how to process data from your last program, share that with us. That means you've thought about how you're supposed to process your data and how to frame that for somebody new to the observatory. That's really useful. If you have code directly that you can share, please do that. Yesterday, we had a great breakout session for advanced KCWI data reduction, which was some folks at Caltech sharing their code for how they're taking the existing pipeline and pushing its capabilities further. And a lot of that's going to be integrated into the main pipeline for everybody. If you have organized feedback, I say organized, feedback through GitHub, if you run into problems with pipelines and you can tell us what data set you used, what you were trying to do, what went wrong, that's fantastic. Even better, if you're scrolling through the issues and you see that somebody's had a problem that you've had, help them. You can share that knowledge around. And for those of you who are grad students or postdocs, consider trying to be a Keck visiting scholar and coming to the observatory for a summer to work on a pipeline for an instrument. We've had this done twice now. Adolfo Carvalho from here at Caltech is the reason we have a high resolution DRP for NearSpec. He worked with the Pipet team, and then Nick Brzezinski contributed a lot to the KCWI pipeline while he was at Keck working on his own research. So we have a history of this working out really, really, really well, and spending a summer in Hawaii is a lot of fun. And as a final incentive, major US funders, NSF and NASA, are beginning to require people to share all of their data. Data means code as well as the observations publicly and openly. So anybody who's written a grant recently has gotten to write a data management plan, which is a 2-page document that talks about how you're going to keep track of all of this stuff and make sure everybody has access. And contributing to open source tools like data reduction pipelines and fostering an open science community in Keck and without is a really good way to demonstrate a history of support for these open science initiatives. So I've served on 2 different proposal review panels in the last 2 years. And I can tell you from my experience, and was focused on the software, of course, but people who demonstrated that they already knew how to contribute to this open science ecosystem immediately get put into a different pile of people who clearly know what's going on. So this will strengthen you as an applicant in the future, as well as the actual proposals that you're putting forward for Keck. So I'll leave you with this. We are close to releasing pipelines for all of our instruments. We're not there yet, but we're close. We need help to cross that finish line, especially because that finish line really is actually infinitely far off in the future, because we need to maintain these pipelines forever, or at least until the instruments are retired. We do have, I didn't write this up here, we do have rough plans to try and back reduce all data that's been observed or collected at Keck in the archive. That's a much, much, much bigger project. Trying to figure out how to reduce 30 years of high-res data is not a trivial project. And it benefits everybody when we embrace these open source science initiatives. It helps your science, it helps archive users, it helps your proposals, it helps the Keck community as a whole. So if you have any questions or ideas, my inbox is open. Also feel free to find John O'Mara or Mark Cassis. They can direct stuff my way. And I'll leave you with this chart of, you can see where your favorite instrument is on our plans. Thank you so much.